Hey guys, it's Tekosor and I hope you are all doing well. So, a few days ago, I finished building my latest Intel PC build featuring Core Ultra 7 265K CPU. I've started exploring around and in this video, we'll get started with an option known by PerfDrive found in Gigabyte Motherboard BIOS. I'm not sure if all Gigabyte or AORUS Z890 boards has it, but one thing for sure, the Elite Xis does have it. It has 5 different modes, with the first two being Intel default baseline and performance. And then we have AORUS special profiles, Spec enhance, optimization, and unleash mode. We'll see in a bit how each one works and explore the difference between them. So if your board does have it and would like to know about them and which is the best mode to choose from, I hope this video will be useful. So let's get started. First of all, the BIOS version I'm using is the latest as of this date, F10D, released on 29th of November. It has lots of fixes, and I believe Intel is still working on more microcodes to fix and boost performance on its Arrow Lake CPUs. But that will be a topic for another video. So, when we first head to BIOS, we can see this dashboard, also known by EC mode. Here we pretty much have most of the essential changes we can make on the fly, such as enabling RAM XMP profiles and special features like high bandwidth and low latency. We can also control fans and check CPU frequency, voltages, etc. So basically, it's one place to have various controls and check for some information. But by going to advanced mode, we can unlock even more things. What we are interested in is found in the Tweaker tab, and it's the very first option called Gigabyte PerfDrive or Performance Drive, I think. Here we have all the modes we talked about: Intel default baseline, Intel default performance, Spec enhance, optimization, and finally unleash. Now when you choose any of the last 3 modes by Gigabyte, another option gets unlocked, known as CPU upgrade. In it, we get the max performance profile option. What it does is, as it say here, adjusting the turbo ratio by +1, and also say it needs an adequate cooling solution. I'm using an AIO cooler, Arctic Freezer 3 240mm, a very performant and cost-effective solution. So we'll try those modes we talked about. Now while at it, we can also enable some options like high bandwidth. I believe this one is related to RAM. We also have the low latency option, so I'll enable it as well, along with enabling the XMP profile of my RAM, which is capable of reaching 8000 MTS. Alright, now we'll do a Cinebench R23 test to see the difference on those CPU power profiles. And here we are. For multi-core, Intel default baseline scored 30,240, and by switching to Intel default performance, the score jumped to 36,246. So a 6,000 point increase. Then we get another boost by using any of the Spec enhance, optimization, and unleash mode, reaching a max of 37,089 in the case of unleash mode. All those last power profiles have CPU upgrade mode on as well. Checking single core, we have the highest score on default baseline, getting 2106. But that's not all. What we'll find is even more interesting if we check the gazout metric. For max core VAID, Intel default baseline has 1.286 volt, and that's the lowest, while Intel default performance is higher a bit, getting to 1.294 volt. And then we'll see a significant increase if we go with Spec enhance or optimization, reaching 1.326 volt. Surprisingly, using unleash drops a bit in comparison to those two. Now as for P-Core's max clock ratio, it maxed out at 5.5 GHz on Intel default baseline and performance modes, while it's 5.3 GHz on Spec enhance, optimization, and unleash modes. However, as for E-cores, it's quite the opposite. Those 3 power profiles increase the E-core clock by 1 plus, getting to 4.7 GHz compared to 4.6 for Intel default ones. As for temperatures, our lowest temp is with Intel default baseline, getting to only 58 degrees. I'm not even undervolting here. It's all controlled by the power profile. For performance mode, it jumped to 76. Then on spec enhance and optimization, it reaches 84. So around 25 degrees Celsius difference from default baseline to those Gigabyte power profile modes. And finally, for the Unleash one, it gets a bit down to 80 degrees. I'm a bit surprised that Unleash mode seems to be the least aggressive when it comes to voltage and temp increase. I would expect Unleash to be the most demanding one, but it seems that optimization and spec enhance are more in this case. For PL1, Intel default baseline has 125 watt and Intel default performance has 250 watt, and all 3 gigabyte profiles has 4095 watt. So pretty much all power limits are lifted, which in my humble opinion isn't a good idea. I'd rather like to have control over the power limits than leave it loose for unnecessary heat generation. Anyways, for PL2, Intel baseline has 177 watt, performance has 250 watt, and it's again 4095 watt for all the 3 power profiles by Gigabyte. Finally, during this test, our CPU max power draw for cores is 160 watt for Intel default baseline, 212 for Intel default performance, and 242 for both spec enhance and optimization. And finally, 226 for unleash mode. So based on what we can see, I don't really feel those 3 modes, spec enhance, optimization, and unleash are quite worth it. Even if we get around 800 point increase in Cinebench multi-core test, but at what cost? Uncontrolled power limits, higher power consumption, and higher voltage and temperature. So it seems quite misplaced. Plus P-core maxed out at 5.5 GHz on default baseline and performance for the 2 fast cores compared to 5.3 GHz on Gigabyte power profiles, even though E-cores has higher clock ratio. Now how about we check some gaming? Here I have Cyberpunk 2077 Benchmark on low settings at 1080p resolution. Surprisingly, in gaming our CPU clock is 5.3 GHz on Gigabyte profiles compared to 5.2 on Intel default ones, with power draw and temp a bit higher. But I will say all of them have an okay temperature around the 50s, and power draw not reaching 70 watt at max. As for performance score, on Intel default baseline, we got 230 average FPS. Intel default performance mode gave us a 5 FPS boost, and those 3 power profiles by Gigabyte give us again up to 5 FPS increase. So based on what we saw on those days, I will recommend that if you like to automatically use CPU power profiles, instead of defining your own parameters, each of those 5 power profiles has its pros and cons. Intel default ones usually have strict power limits and lower voltage and temperature, while the Gigabyte ones, Spec Enhance, Optimization, and Unleash have the benefit of a bit higher performance, but at the cost of uncontrolled power limits and higher temperature in certain scenarios. I truly hope this video has helped you know the difference. If you found it useful, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel in case you haven't. Next, I'll be covering more tweaks and undervolting this CPU for even lower temperature possibilities, and also trying out to increase clock ratio while staying stable. And all of that is by using this motherboard BIOS, and even we'll try that on XTO if you prefer that, or also if you are using another brand. So stay tuned for what's to come. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.